Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card making tutorial. Today I am going into an in-depth tutorial on how I created this card. There we go, that's a better look. Using a stamp from Hero Arts called Peonies and the Arteza Real Brush pens. This is part of the review that I did for the Arteza pens, and this card was so much fun to color. So I have lots of tips and lots of creative ways to be able to share coloring this fun image and creating some interest for a background too. Let's check it out. I'm going to use the Arteza Real Brush pens together with a panel that is created from Bristol Smooth cardstock, and this is the one from Canson XL. I have used some StazOn Jet Black to make sure that my stamped image is waterproof and will not run. So I've chosen 2 purple markers from the Arteza set, and I am going to do some very simple coloring. I've scribbled the color onto a clear acrylic block. Instead of taking the marker or the pen directly to the paper, I can get a much lighter and subtle look and a better blend if I use them and pick it up with my brush tip and take it to the paper. This was very easy for me. This is the first time that I have used the Arteza brushes in this manner, and I found that by scribbling it on the clear block that I could control the color very much. I had a really fun time whenever I was putting this together. It was just relaxing and coloring, and all of the colors that I'm creating are just from those 2 markers. If you do not have a set of these pens, then I would suggest maybe using another kind of a marker that is made up of dye ink. If you use Stampin' Up! Products, then you can use the Stampin' Write markers or any other markers that you find that you like to use. By using just these 2 colors, then I was able to start the petal and use the light marker and then go back in and add that darker color, and it just worked out so easily. So most of what I'm doing is not really the wet on wet watercolor technique. Instead, I'm just simply picking up some of the light purple and adding it to one petal at a time. And because it's on the water brush, then it's diluting it as it goes. So I like to work in layers, and I will bring that darker of the 2 purple right back in and enhance some of the colors. One way that I like to make sure that I don't allow any of the colors to bleed is to work in one particular section and then move over to another section on another part of the flower. Another way to avoid any of your colors bleeding together would be to emboss your image. So you could emboss it with any color that you like, from white to clear, and just take some embossing powder over your stamped image, and once it is heat set, it turns into like a plastic, and it acts as a barrier. So one petal will not bleed into the next petal whatsoever. Embossing is one of the tricks that I use for watercoloring all the time. So you can see how quickly this has gone together. I did speed the video up considerably, but I wanted you guys to be able to see just how great it is to be able to watercolor with this method. So again, if you don't have the Arteza brushes, it's okay. You can still try this out. And you can take your stamp pad and dab it onto an acrylic block, or you can work from the lid of your stamp pad, whatever you've got to work with. This is a technique that will allow many different looks. So I'm going to go back in with 2 different yellows and make the center of the flower kind of stand up a bit. Now I have fussy cut the image as well as 2 leaves. So I wanted to try the Arteza pens out in another way, and I needed to create some sort of a background for my flower on the card base. So I took the cap off of each one of these markers. I used 1 gray and 1 black. And friends, let me tell you, I have not had such a smooth and even flicking with any product ever. I have done like where I can add to my own block and dilute it. I've done it where I can knock it on my finger. Making paint flicks with these brush pens was perfect. The small, consistent, little bitty tiny specks and dots, I'm just so pleased. They worked out so well. So if for nothing else, I can see going to the Arteza pens and using them for flicking. So I adhered to those white pieces, those white strips, down to a black card base that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I adhered the flower over that with some double-sided foam adhesive. Now I have stamped onto a scrap of white with Memento Tuxedo black ink. And I'm going to just slip that little sentiment in with some liquid glue. It's going to cover over part of the petal, but that's okay. It doesn't cover up the flower as a whole, and that so that we can still see it nicely. Now I'm going to add some sequins. These are clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh, and they have a little iridescent look. I hope that you have found this tutorial useful and that you have new ideas for using the coloring products in your next project. Here's another look at our card, and don't forget to come back and view the video tutorials for these other 2 cards using exactly the same stamp set, exactly the same set of Arteza Real Brush pens, but in a totally different look with different techniques. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.